Okay, for this video we're going to be looking at the relationship between addition and subtraction. So we're looking at relationships between addition and subtraction. So the first thing I want to do is I want to draw a tape diagram to represent the expression 5 plus 4. So I have my expression 5 plus 4. I want to show that in a tape diagram. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my 5, and I'm going to have 5 boxes. And I'm adding 4 to that, so I'm going to add 4 boxes. So now I can see I have 5 plus the 4 we have here. 5 plus 4. And we know that is a total of 9. Okay, so again, just a little bit of review on tape diagrams again. We can show the expression 5 plus 4 by having 5 boxes and adding to that 4 boxes. So the next thing I want to do is I want to represent 3 using my boxes and using my tape diagram. So if I want to represent 3, I'm going to go, okay, here's 1, here's 2, there's 3. So if I was to do a tape diagram just representing the number 3, I would have 3 boxes. The next thing I want to do this is I want to add 2 more boxes. So I'm going to add 2. So if I add 2, I'm going to have my 3 that I started with 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to add 2 to that. 1, 2. Okay, so now, well, what if I want to write what I just did as an expression? So write as expression. Okay, what I can do is I can start here. Whoops, I'm going to undo that. That was a really bad bracket. With my 3. And then because I added 2, so I would be left with the expression 3 plus 2. There's my expression. Now let's say I remove 2 squares. So now I want to remove 2. Well, if I remove 2, how many squares am I going to have? I'm going to have 1, 2, 3. Now let's alter the expression to represent what I just did. So if I want to alter my expression here, my expression was 3 plus 2, but then I removed 2, so I'm going to subtract 2 from it. And now if I'm asked to evaluate the expression, which means solve it, if I have 3 and I add 2, but then I subtract 2, I end up equaling 3. I end up having exactly what I started with. Okay, for this example, let's say I start with 10 squares. So on my tape diagram, I know that I have 10 squares, meaning my units are 10. And let's have us remove 6. So if I remove 6, I'm now going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 squares. If I wanted to write that as an expression, whoops, let's undo that. If I wanted to write that as an expression, I would say that I have 10 minus 6. Well, now let's go ahead and let's add 6 squares back. So if I add 6 squares back, I had my 4 that I started with, 2, 3, 4, and now I'm going to add 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So now what I want to do is I want to alter my expression. Meaning, let's change the expression we started with, 10 minus 6, to show what we then did to it. Well, then I added 6. So I'd have 10 minus 6 plus 6. And if I'm asked to evaluate, that means solve this expression. 10 minus 6 plus 6 is equal to 10. I can see that I'm ending up with exactly what I started with. Again, I'm ending with exactly what I started with. So what does that mean for us? Well, in both of these problems that we looked at, the final value equaled the initial value. So whatever we started with equaled with whatever we ended with. And the reason that happens is because the overall change was 0. When we add and subtract the same exact number, we're really not changing anything. If you have $5 and then I take away that 5 and then give you 5 more, you still have what you started with. Okay, there was no change. So because there was no change, if I was to give us a problem like this, if I was to say 4 plus 6 minus what is equal to 4, I can look and I can say, alright, I have starting off with 4. When I end up, I want to end up with the same exact thing. I want to end up with 4, meaning whatever I'm going to add or subtract in the problem, in here, has to cancel out, meaning there is no change. So if I'm going to add 6, that's meaning I'm going to have to subtract 6 to equal what I started with. So I know that blank should be a 6. If I was to give us something like this, say we don't know what we start with, but we know if we add 15 and then subtract 15, it's going to equal 25. Again, I can use the same concept or the same principles that I already saw. If I'm adding to and subtracting 15, I know that those are going to cancel out. Okay, there's not going to be any change, because if you're adding an amount and then taking that same amount away, you're exactly what you started with. So with whatever we ended with here has to be whatever we started with here, which is 25.